Hello and welcome back to Watching Washington. It's Friday, March 6th, and I'm Julia Moran. Let's take a look at the top stories this week. We start with developments around the war in Iran and rising tensions in the region. According to reports, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei was killed in an airstrike near the capital, Tehran. This incident comes as tensions continue to rise in the Middle East. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has led Iran since 1989 and is the most influential political and religious figure in the region. Officials say the airstrikes targeted key government and military facilities around Tehran. Iranian officials have not released full details, but the developments are raising concerns about an escalation of the conflict. As Middle East tensions continue to rise, leaders from countries including Israel and the United States are closely following developments. What does this mean for Americans at home? Many states have seen an overnight spike in gas prices due to the conflict. This impacts oil routes and rising oil prices in oil futures. According to the American Automobile Association, almost 30 states have seen gas prices rise at least 10 cents from Monday to Tuesday. In Indiana specifically, the average a week ago was $2.82, and by Thursday it was $3.18. In Lafayette, the average a week ago was $2.49 and rose to $3.27 by Thursday. Between Monday and Tuesday, Indiana's gas prices rose 20 cents. According to The Hill, the top 3 states hit the hardest were Ohio, Georgia, and Indiana. Oil futures remain high as a result of the Middle East tension, so gas prices are not expected to lower as of now. Outside of the U.S. and Iran, the Middle East conflict is impacting other countries in the region. Missiles were intercepted over the skies of Doha, Qatar, the capital of the country. This raises new concerns about regional safety. Doha's air defense system shot down multiple missiles over the city's West Bay area on Thursday. Qatar's Ministry of Defense confirmed the missile attacks and stated the air defense system activated for interception. Officials are closely monitoring the situation, and we will continue to report as the conflict develops. This war is already resulting in casualties. A Minnesota community is mourning the loss of one of its own. Since the war in Iran began, more than 870 people have been killed across the region as Iran responds with intensifying military strikes. Among the victims are Americans. At least 6 U.S. service members have been killed since the attacks began. One of them is Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Amore served nearly 20 years in the military and was nearing what her family believed to be her final deployment. Her brother says he hoped to spend more time with her and her 2 children after returning home.
I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the families and teammates of the extraordinary Americans who've been killed in action.
Seeing that, it just is a shock that, this family is going to have to absorb that loss, and it's going to hurt.
Leaders ordered flags to fly at half-staff as the community honors Sergeant Amore and remembers her service. So far, the United States strikes have been called by President Trump without congressional approval. Congress voted against a bill this week that would have restricted his powers as commander-in-chief. This resolution sought to limit President Trump's powers in the ongoing war against Iran. In a 53-47 vote, Republicans rejected the advancement of the bill. According to an article by The Hill, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky was the only Republican to vote against the bill. Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania voted with Republicans to block the resolution. The bill also failed in the House on Thursday by a vote of 212 to 219, mostly along party lines. As the war progresses, White House officials are commenting on its status. Pete Hegseth, the United States Secretary of War, addressed what's being called Operation Epic Fury at the Pentagon press briefing this Wednesday. This was a rare on-camera briefing following Iranian drone strikes that killed 6 U.S. service members. Hegseth stated the U.S. is winning decisively.
Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt.
It was a tense briefing where timeline and goals were questioned, one of the more pressing topics being how long the operation will last. While President Trump stated the timeline to be around a month, Hegseth was uncertain of its length. This response comes with news of more forces arriving in the Middle East, with Hegseth stating the U.S. will take all the time it needs to ensure the operation's success. The secretary ended with this message.
4 days in, we have only just begun to fight. America fights to win, and in Operation Epic Fury, we are. May God's providence cover and protect our troops always.
Up next, police in Texas are investigating a deadly shooting at a bar. Plus, voters in Texas and other states are taking part in the first primary elections. Stay with us. More Watching Washington next.
At Purdue University, we're not just students, we're future leaders. Join Air Force ROTC to embark on a journey of honor, excellence, and service. Learn, lead, and soar to new heights. It's not just a commitment, it's a calling. Purdue Air Force ROTC, where dreams take flight. Are you ready to rise?
I got a switch in my head. I go from living to dead. You got me seeing all red. Now I'm becoming.
We are energetic, we are motivating, and we are unique.
I don't think you can beat Quidditch.
We have our meetings where people can come in, write, draw on cards. We send them over to specific hospitals.
So I joined Letters of Love because the original creator of Letters of Love, her mom had cancer growing up, and she took all of these letters that her mom had made. So being able to give back to an organization that can make these kids feel like human again was the most important thing to me.
Anyone is welcome here. You don't have to be queer to come here. You're welcome to just come in, stop by, say hi to people.
I feel like it's helped me find my friend group. I don't think that without this place I would have had such a strong, close-knit social group as I've formed here.
Around 2 a.m. Sunday morning, police received a call of an active shooter outside Buford's Backyard Beer Garden near downtown Austin, Texas. In what's being now investigated as a possible act of terror, 3 people were killed and 16 were injured in the shooting. The suspect, Indiaga Dianye, was among those killed. When searched, he wore a sweatshirt saying "Property of Allah" and also had an Iranian flag shirt on. According to FBI reports, the suspect had flags and pictures of Iranian leaders hanging on his walls, but was not on the FBI's radar before the attack. Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis talked to reporters later Sunday morning.
This incident started with, again, that calls for a male shooting at Buford's Bar on West 6th Street. Officers immediately transitioned, came over East 6th to West 6th Street, and were faced with the individual with the gun, and 3 of our officers returned fire, killing the suspect.
In other Texas news, the state's primary voter turnout shocks the nation, and State Representative James Tallarico defeated U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett for the Democratic Senate seat nomination. Both parties showed up to the polls in record numbers this year, with nearly 2.3 million Democrats and 2.2 million Republicans going in to cast their votes. According to the Texas Tribune, even within the first 7 days of early voting, there were more ballots cast than any recent midterm. Both parties' 2026 turnout had surpassed 2018 totals, making this one of the largest turnouts the state had seen. Many voters were turned away due to voting law changes, but the polls remained open for extra hours. Tallarico had this to say before he was called winner.
Tonight, our campaign is shocking the nation. We are still waiting for an official call, but we are confident in this movement we've built together. Every vote must be counted. Every voice must be heard. The voter suppression in my home county and in Congresswoman Crockett's home county underscores the gravity of this moment. This movement is about whether the people will hold the power in this state and in this country. Tonight, the people of our state gave this country a little bit of hope, and a little bit of hope is a dangerous thing.
Outside of Texas, other states began their primaries. Races in North Carolina and Arkansas gained attention, according to NBC's reports. Within Texas, Republican candidates continued their race in a runoff. Democratic candidate for North Carolina Senate, Roy Cooper, poses a threat to Republicans, as NBC says. Michael Whatley, the Republican candidate, prepares to face Cooper. Both are raising extensive funds before the November election. Federal Election Commission data shows each candidate raising millions. In Arkansas, incumbent House Representative Tom Cotton and incumbent Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders breezed through their primaries. Mississippi and Georgia are next up to begin theirs, holding their primaries on Tuesday. NBC reports Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat as a race to watch, given its deep red history and Greene's close ties to President Trump. In Washington, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified in front of the House Oversight Committee late last week. The Clintons were questioned by a panel about their involvement with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The hearings were supposed to be closed, but Hillary Clinton's testimony came to a halt after Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert shared a photo of the proceedings.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
I have
There
another.
are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how that
I'm
can
done
occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would
sake.
like to understand how that's permissible.
It doesn't
Excuse
matter.
me.
We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well.
I would like to take a break at this moment.
Yeah,
and we'd like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Go off the record. Go off the record.
Former President Bill Clinton was deposed the following day. In one of the committee's exchanges with Clinton, the former president was asked about a photo made public showing him in a jacuzzi with an unidentified woman.
Were there other people in that pool or hot tub with you as well?
I don't think there's anybody in the hot tub. I didn't forgotten that there was anybody in the hot tub, but it was big, but it was about.
Well, there's
He's asking in the pool
It appears
area.
there's this photo, there's a girl over here, or there's someone.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
But he's also asking in the pool area whether other
Yes,
individuals.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so you don't know?
No, and then there were other people in the pool. Went out, I swam around, I sat in the hot tub for 5 minutes, or whatever it was, and I got up and went to bed.
And then I have to ask this, did you engage in any sexual activity
No.
with this person? Okay, thank you.
Both Clintons faced several hours of questioning from lawmakers on both sides. Former President Clinton denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. He characterized his involvement with Epstein as a, quote, brief acquaintance. Hillary Clinton told the committee she had never met Epstein nor had communications with him. She also claimed she had no information about his criminal activities. Staying in Washington, Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, was replaced by President Trump on Thursday. In a social media post, the president announced Noem's departure from the position and her replacement. Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma is nominated to replace Noem on March 31st. According to a CNN report, Noem faced controversy through her span as DHS secretary. This included an alleged romantic relationship with a staff member to intense scrutiny in congressional hearings. Noem will transition into a new position. She's set to be the special envoy for the Shield of Americas, President Trump's new security initiative to be formally announced on Saturday. Our last story of the week, a reminder that daylight saving time begins this weekend. This means most people will need to set their clocks ahead by 1 hour at 2 a.m. on March 8th. Many phones and smart devices will update automatically overnight. This time change is meant to make better use of daylight during the spring and summer months. Daylight saving time will end later this year on November 1st, when clocks will fall back 1 hour. So, don't forget to move your clocks forward and maybe go to bed an hour earlier Saturday night. Our in-studio guest this week is Purdue professor and author, Dr. Kathryn Brownell. I'll ask her about politics, Hollywood, and social media. The full interview just ahead on Watching Washington.
What does it take to be a Purdue tour guide? You've got to know your history. You have to know your facts. You've got to have that Purdue spirit. And you have to walk backwards.
If I could describe Boise DC in one word, I would say insightful. I've done a couple internships in DC, but this experience was different and opened my eyes into what other aspects of DC has to offer in networking and relationships as well.
If I could describe BGDC in one word, I would say eye-opening. I've been to DC a couple times before, but I have had nowhere close to an experience as immersive or as informative as the BGDC experience.
If you're interested in politics and you want to get into working in government, this is a good experience for you.
It was something I initially myself really wanted to do, but I know there were a lot of people that might be on more of the fence about it. And I truly think BGDC was worth every penny, every time I did a reflection. Absolutely worth it.
If I can describe BGDC in one word, it's life-changing.
Dr. Kathryn Brownell is a professor of history here at Purdue University. In her website biography, she mentions a goal of creating discussions intersecting social and cultural changes in history with politics and policymaking. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Brownell. So my first question for you, why don't you tell me about your area of expertise, sort of how you became interested in the intersection of politics and pop culture?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. So I'm really interested in how cultural productions shape our understanding of politics. And I really came to this as an undergraduate. It was at the time that Jon Stewart really catapulted to the national fame, and people were paying attention to what he was saying as a comedian. And this really struck me as, why are we getting our news and information about politics from entertainment? And so it really made me think about, when did this connection between entertainment and politics happen? I thought when I went into graduate school that perhaps it happened with Ronald Reagan, who is an actor and became president. But in fact, I turned that it really happened much earlier, and it's a century-long process by which politicians slowly and controversially turned to professional entertainers and advertisers to communicate to the broader public. And so a lot of my research has really looked at the ways that new technologies and new communications industries have affected political change and really reshaped modes of political communication, political organizing, and even governance.
Wonderful. Yeah, I absolutely think that pop culture has such a driving force in how we talk about politics and how we view it, because the people in power definitely have some say over that, whether they're in politics or not. And specifically, I want to talk about awards show season. So we just saw the Actor Awards, formerly the SAG Awards, and we're going to be seeing the Oscars, that kind of stuff coming soon. And a lot of people are remarking on how political the speeches have gotten. And that's something pretty noticeable. What do you think about that? Is that a thing that is kind of new, or has it happened in the past?
It has absolutely happened in the past. And I think every year there's a conversation of how political will the awards season get. And really since the 1960s, especially into the 1970s, the Oscars have become an opportunity for actors to make a political stance. And this really is a result of a shift in the Hollywood industry itself. Prior to the 1960s, the studio systems had stringent control over public statements that celebrities could make. Their contracts were very binding. They had morality clauses that really shaped their public behavior. That starts to break down in the 1960s, and actors have more independence, and then they've used that to leverage their celebrity frequently for political causes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting sort of historical thing there, and how the actors have more independence over that. And you talked about Jon Stewart and sort of the whole late night talk show scene. We saw recently Stephen Colbert had an interview with James Tallarico, and how that was supposedly going to be taken off air, but then he uploaded it. It was a whole debacle. And I was wondering how you see these claims that these media companies, whether it's late night talk shows, different media leadership transitions, all that stuff, do you see it as censorship, or do you just see it as a sort of shifting, I guess, landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been really fascinating to see a lot of internal discussions about politics and programming and business deals and how they might all be related. A lot of that is happening in public now. It's something that we can all consume and see. But previously, this has absolutely happened. It's just been more behind the scenes, not as out in the open. And for example, I think about a time during the 1960s when there were hearings on Vietnam, and Lyndon Johnson did not want these hearings to happen. And he really pushed some of the networks to not cover that and to shift towards entertainment programming. And some of them catered to him, and they did. Others did not. But that was a political struggle that really happened behind the scenes. And so I think that you have all of these different dynamics that are at play. You have executives who are worried about regulations, they're worried about business deals, they're worried about the bottom line. You have people who are the face of these programs, people like Stephen Colbert, who have professional integrity and professional goals, and that they want to continue to uphold them as well. And so there's that battle. But then, of course, you have the broader political battle. You have the mobilization of audiences, grassroots organizations encouraging audiences to push push back on certain decisions. And then, of course, you have the White House, which has taken a very explicit and aggressive interest in television programming, which is not a surprise. Again, presidents have done this previously, but President Trump is very sensitive and very aware of popular culture and entertainment and criticisms of him. And he has shown that he's very willing to go after those people who are critical.
So these sort of business exchanges that are happening, do you see business and politics, the intersection, sort of the topic of free speech, right, under the First Amendment? Do you see this as a violation of that First Amendment, or do you see this more as a shifting business media landscape?
It's a really great question. And I think with CBS in particular, it's important to understand that the television broadcast networks speech has always been confined. It's always been regulated in some capacity because of the nature of that medium. That broadcast media, because it uses the airwaves to disseminate its product, it's been regulated by the FCC since 1934. And so the FCC has had control over certain programming, certain ownership. It has things like equal time. The Fairness Doctrine was in place for a while. It was ultimately rescinded in the 1980s, formally in 1987. And so I think that there have always been these restrictions that have been at play, especially with broadcast. And broadcast is different from print journalism that has more First Amendment capacities.
Yeah. You talk about journalism and you talk about these different mediums, and a new one that we are seeing is social media.
Yeah.
So many people get their news from social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, if they're checking for news outlets or they're just seeing what other people are saying. In your opinion, how has this shift, this change to a sort of social media news landscape, how has it affected political behavior?
It's a great question. And I think that you see there's a decentralization of information that has happened with social media, that has happened with the internet more broadly. And you don't have the gatekeeping that you used to have over political information. When you think about, if you go back to the 1960s, overwhelmingly people had 3 channels that they got their information from. There was a monopoly by the television networks over that information, and people across the political spectrum were really frustrated with that. They wanted to decentralize it to allow more of a diversity of perspectives. And now you have that diversity of perspectives. And it's ultimately playing out. One of the things I think is really important to understand is that in 1996, there's the Telecommunications Act that is passed. And that really sets the regulatory landscape for how the internet and then social media plays out. And that the idea undergirding that is that the consumer interest is the public interest. And so it's deregulation to allow what triumphs in the marketplace to really shape democratic experiences in many capacities. And what we see with social media is that what sells and what gets the ratings, it doesn't always inform. And I think that's really the tension, is that there's more access to information, but a lot of the information that is elevated, that goes viral, that we see is not necessarily that is encouraging an informed citizenry, but it's really encouraging consumer behaviors as well.
So you see this abundance of information and this 24/7 news cycle that social media is causing. It's affecting political behavior. It's making people more hostile. Do you see this impacting elections?
Absolutely. One of the things that you see with, especially in the last 30 years, when you have this nonstop 24/7 news cycle, is that there's always pressure to be making the news. There's always an opportunity to be making the news, right? And so this is something that now you have members of Congress who are calculating how they can try to create a headline for themselves. And so there's this constant pressure to always be thinking about what you're saying, how you're saying it, how it might play in the next election. It's what we call the permanent campaign. And so it's really shifted governing away from governing to this constant, incessant campaigning.
So besides social media and this campaigning, there's a lot happening politically in the U.S. landscape. That's a whole nother conversation for later. But where do you think we go from here? How do you think social media, the new landscape, especially with the introduction of AI, how do you think that is going to impact future politics?
I think one of the critical questions that we face right now is, again, we have an abundance of information, and many people are really struggling to navigate it. It's information overload. How often do you feel like, I don't know what is true anymore? And I think this is a challenge that we have as citizens, but I think it's a huge challenge that we have as educators, as students, as people going into the news industry, that there's a real opportunity because people are really hungry for good information. And I think trying to figure out ways that information can be appealing and accessible, but also informative and fact-based, that is going to be a really fundamental challenge moving forward.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has been such an informative discussion. I definitely feel like I have a better understanding of social media, the landscape that we're seeing right now politically, and sort of how we're going to move forward there. It's a lot of questions, but no one really has the answers right now.
And that's why conversation is great.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much to our guest, Dr. Kathryn Brownell, for being with us today, and thank you for watching. We will see you the next time on Watching Washington.